my section won't take very long, maybe about 10 minutes, but they asked me to come in, and we have doctors present always every year and kind of talk about the medical background and answer technical questions. And they thought it might be a nice addition this year to have kind of a patient perspective. What is it like to have Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis? So as Mike said, my name is Stasia Straley. I am a CPA. I teach at the university. I'm a wife and a mom. My husband is here in the front and Ryan's in the back. Hi, Ryan. Okay, and I have Crohn's disease. So as I talk today, I'll be referring mostly to Crohn's, but of course I'll be including UC in that also. So I'd love to know kind of off the bat, and you don't have to answer if you're not comfortable, but how many people have UC or Crohn's disease? Okay, lots. And how many people do not? Okay, good. So about half and half. All right, so I thought, I have my computer up here just so I don't lose track. I'm a teacher, I told you that, right? So you know how that goes. So I thought I would just maybe share a couple of stories, and then I would close by talking about spoon theory. And while I'm talking today, and as we have been, I'll use words like diarrhea and vomit and blood and things that are not really dinner time conversations. And so sometimes that can be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think it is really important for people who have IBD to use those words to help educate people. I think sometimes we kind of avoid telling people that we have Crohn's disease or we have this illness because we don't want to say, yeah, my main symptom is I have diarrhea. So I'm going to talk about that a lot today. So when I was diagnosed about 7 years ago, as I mentioned, I wasn't very sick at all when I got diagnosed, which is different than many people. I just started going to the bathroom, and every time I went to the bathroom, I had a little bit of diarrhea. But it wasn't urgent, it wasn't painful, there was no cramping. I really didn't think that much of it, it just was kind of weird. So I took my son to get his physical in September, all those years ago, and while I was there, I just mentioned to the doctor, hey, I'm having diarrhea every time I go to the bathroom. This doesn't seem normal. And he said, no, that's not normal. You probably have some kind of infection. And so he gave me an antibiotic. So I took that for a couple of weeks and it didn't work. And so I went back a couple of weeks later and I said, hey, that didn't work. And it started to get worse now. It's starting to get kind of more urgent and more crampy and I'm in pain. And he said, oh, maybe I gave you an antibiotic that just didn't interact well with your system. Your stomach kind of sensitive for antibiotics. Let me give you something else. And I said, that sounds great. So I took another antibiotic, waited another couple of weeks, that also didn't work. So I'm getting sicker and sicker. So I keep going back and I keep doing all of these different tests. I did stool samples, I did blood tests, felt like a million different tests that I did. And so now several months have gone by. I got sick in September, October passes, now it's November. And finally he said, I think you need to go see a GI doctor. I think there's like an actual real problem here. Like we're not gonna be able to fix this with little drugs. And he said, okay. So I went to see my GI and he did a colonoscopy and said, you have Crohn's disease. And I remember that meeting almost like it was yesterday. I walked in and I've been sick for several months now, right? Which is not uncommon for people who have Crohn's disease. They don't know what's wrong with them. They just know they're really sick and they don't know why. And so I went in and I was like, am I dying, right? Am I gonna die? Like, I don't know what's happening to me. And he said, you have Crohn's disease. And I said, oh, thank goodness. Like, I was so glad just to have a diagnosis and know what was wrong. And he looked at me like I was crazy, absolutely insane. Like, why would you be happy about having Crohn's disease? So he gives me all these websites and like, you need to do more research, obviously, if you're happy about having Crohn's disease. And no, I had read about it, but I figured there's all these good drugs, it's gonna be no problem. And so he put me on steroids and sure enough, it was no problem. I got better like a month later, a couple weeks later, it was no problem, felt great. I remember seeing I see a nurse practitioner and I was at their clinic for something else and I just passed her in the hallway. Stasia Straley is her name, and she said, hey, whatever happened with that stomach thing, what's going on? And I said, oh, I have Crohn's disease. Kind of excited still about this, right? Like I have a diagnosis. And she just stopped dead in her tracks and she said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And I remember going home and telling my husband, like, wow, Suzanne was really dramatic today. Like I saw her in the hall and she was really panicking about this Crohn's thing. And so 7 years later, I've learned that they're right. Yeah, they're right. It is horrible to have Crohn's disease. It's really terrible. So how has Crohn's disease impacted me? Several different ways. I think the first way is my friends. I read this meme a while ago, a couple weeks ago, and it said, I found when you tell somebody that you have an illness, an incurable chronic illness, they're really understanding for about 3 weeks. And I thought, yes, that's exactly what happens. When I first tell my friends, they're like, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. How can I help you? This is a really big deal. And then 6 months goes by or a year and they're like, you're still sick? You're still not gonna come out because you're tired or your stomach hurts or you can't eat? Still, this is still your excuse? And I'm like, this is always going to be my excuse. This is a real thing, right? I want to go out with you, I'm just not able to go out with you. I had a friend who I met with during one of my flares. I hadn't seen her for a couple of months, was really sick. I'd lost about 50 pounds. And I couldn't eat anything. My hair was falling out, my eyebrows were falling out. I was really sick. And I saw her and she said, wow, you look great, right? Which is what people say to chubby people when they lose weight. Yeah, you look amazing. And I said, she said, how'd you do it? And I said, I'm actually really sick. I have Crohn's disease. I haven't been able to eat. I'm barely drinking. It's horrible. At that time, I was on like 16 pills a day. I had bracelets because you had to take them during the day, right? Not all 16 at once. So I would wear 3 bracelets, and then each time I would take a set of pills, I'd switch those over to the other wrist to keep track of how many I'd taken. And she rubbed my hand and said, I hope I get what you have. I hope I get what you have. Right? And I thought, what? Would you say that to somebody else who was really sick? Would you say that to like a cancer patient? Probably not. But I think that there's this big misunderstanding, right? That Crohn's is just a tummy thing. You look great, you're losing a bunch of weight. Sounds really easy not being able to eat, right? And so I think part of it, at some point there, I got depressed. We talked about that earlier. Psychologically, it's very difficult. And I just started avoiding everybody because I thought, I can't handle this anymore. Like, I really rub my hand and you want this disease? It's terrible, right? Or there's a bingo card out there that says things that people with invisible illnesses hear, and it's like, you should just eat this, you should just not eat that, you should do more yoga, right? You should try this exercise or that, and that'll fix you. And so for a while I just thought, I'm avoiding everybody, like I cannot take these people anymore. And then I thought, no, it's really an opportunity for me to educate them and help them understand what it's like to have Crohn's disease. It's not just a simple tummy thing. It's not something that'll go away after 3 weeks, right? I'm sick forever. And so I really tried to kind of shift my thinking to, they're trying to help me, let me try to help them as well. So maybe I'll share one more story, and then I want to close with the spoon theory. But my last part, I would say the hardest thing for me dealing with Crohn's is my family. It's so hard. And so my son is 16 now, and one of the things with children who have Crohn's disease, like we talked about, is they don't grow at a regular rate sometimes. That can be a thing because of lack of nutrition. And so when Ryan was born, he was 10 pounds, which was like a good sign that he's going to be a nice, big, healthy boy. And then he's 6'5" now at 16, so that hasn't been a problem, right? But I'm constantly on the watch for whether or not he has Crohn's disease. So he'll say sometimes, Mom, my stomach kind of hurts. And I'll say, where does it hurt? How much? What did you eat? What does your stool look like? When did you go last, right? It's like 20 questions. And he'll always say, Mom, it's not Crohn's disease. I just have a stomach ache. And so we'll joke with my other friends that Ryan's never going to miss school because of a fake stomach ache, because it's like interrogation for the next 20 minutes. Like, it's just not going to be worth the effort at all. Yeah, he'll have to fake something else to miss school. So that's been really hard seeing, how it can impact Ryan. And I belong to a support group on Facebook, and a lot of those people don't have kids yet. They're younger, and they're trying to decide, should I have children? I had Ryan before I was diagnosed, and so he has about the same percentage of getting Crohn's disease as if I had a child after I was diagnosed. It doesn't change. And the genetic component's like, 10 to 20%. It's not super, super strong, but it is enough to make you wonder, did I purposely, intentionally bring a life into the world and he's gonna be sick? I'm not gonna cry. It just may look like it, but I'm not going to. So you kind of wonder, like, is he going to be able to function normally? Is he gonna be able to have a job? What kind of job is he gonna get if he has Crohn's disease? Is he gonna be able to support himself and be happy, right? You want your kids to be happy. Is he going to be able to do that? Is he going to be able to go to college? What are his relationships going to look like? So I think there's this constant asking yourself, you know, what have I done? What have I done? And so for the younger people on the Crohn's page, a lot of times they're thinking about it. Like, I have Crohn's disease. Should I have a child? Should I even risk it? Is it something I would want to do to my child? And once you have a kiddo, then what kind of mother can you be, right? Is Ryan gonna look back on his childhood and remember happy times with mom? We had so much fun. Is he gonna remember surgeries? Is he gonna remember trips to the hospital? Is he gonna remember me laying in bed because I'm so sick? Is he gonna remember me crying in the bathroom? Like, what is he gonna remember? And I think that's something that people really struggle with, but people don't talk about it a lot. And I think we should. I think we should share it with other people. And then my husband, I know he's so good to me, but I feel a lot of guilt about this, which is totally me. It's not him. He's the best. But I think, you know, when you get married and you say for better, for worse, in sickness and in health, and I think you kind of have this idea that your life partner will be healthy, at least while you're young, right? Hopefully they won't get sick until they're older, and then we'll deal with that then. I don't know that he really signed up for me being sick at 30. Like, I'm not sure that that's what he meant, 50 years of illness with me, or 60 years of illness, or 70 years of illness. And I feel really badly about it. It changes our day-to-day conversations, it changes our vacation plans, it changes our outings. There's some days where the day before I'll be like, we should go do this tomorrow, it's gonna be really fun, let's go do this hike, or let's go see this movie, or let's go do whatever. And then I can't the next day. The next day I feel really sick, I'm in the bathroom the whole day. Sometimes I don't eat, I haven't eaten all day, right? To make sure I can be here. It's really common. People who have Crohn's disease, you have to kind of plan. But it's really difficult. And so, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Okay, so I'd like to close by sharing the spoon theory. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. The first will be, how many people have heard of the spoon theory, are pretty familiar with it, could recite it back to somebody, know it really well? I won't put you on the spot and ask you to do it. The second question will be, how many people have heard of it, maybe don't know it well enough to tell somebody, but they are kind of familiar with it? And then how many people have never heard of the spoon theory at all? So how many, oh, and I brought these spoons for you, that's right. So I have these spoons, Ryan has them, so he'll hand them out at the end, because you could always use an extra spoon. You'll find out why in just a minute. So how many people know the spoon theory, you've got it down cold, you could tell somebody? So just Ryan. How many people have kind of heard of it? So just 1. And how many people have never heard of the spoon theory before? Great, so almost everybody has never heard of the spoon theory. So that's good, that way I'll be able to share that with you guys today. So the spoon theory was created by a gal, her name is Christine Miserandino, and she has a website called ButYouDon'tLookSick.com. And so Christine has lupus, which is an invisible illness, just like Crohn's, it's an autoimmune disorder. And so Christine was hanging out with one of her friends one day at a cafe, and her friend asked her, what does it feel like to be sick all the time? What does it feel like to have lupus? And she said, well, what do you mean? Like, you live with me, you're my roommate, and you come to my doctor's appointments with me. Of course you know what it feels like to be sick all the time. And she said, well, I know what it feels like. Like, I've read it, I've read about it, I know what the symptoms are, but what does it feel like on the inside? What does it feel like to know that you're sick all the time? And so Christine looked around the cafe and she saw spoons on all these tables. So she went around the cafe and she picked up all these spoons, and this is sort of loosely interpreted. So she handed her friend the spoons and she said, each spoon represents energy. So how many spoons do you have? And her friend said, I've got 17 spoons. And she said, okay, that's your energy for the day. That's all you have. And she said, well, I want more spoons. And Christine said, you can't have more spoons. I want more spoons too, but I don't get any more spoons. That's all you get. And so she said, okay. So Christine said, what are you gonna do first thing? And her friend said, I'm gonna get up and get ready. And she said, no. When you're sick, you don't just get up and get ready. The first thing you do is you lay in bed and you try to tell your body you can do this, you can get up, you're gonna have to get up today, and you fight with your body and you encourage your body to get it to move out of bed and get up for the day, that's gonna cost you a spoon. And she took a spoon from her friend. And then she said, are you gonna take a shower? And her friend said, yep. And she said, that's another spoon. So she took another spoon from her. She said, are you gonna shave your legs? That's gonna be another spoon. So she took another spoon from her. And they went on and on like this throughout the day. You're gonna drive a car, takes a lot of concentration, that's a spoon. What are you gonna wear today? For lupus, it's buttons can be difficult, right? There's pain in your fingers. For Crohn's disease, it's my stomach is really tender today. I can't wear anything that's gonna be tight or constrictive. Do I have diarrhea? Am I gonna have to run to the restroom? Then I can't wear anything that has a lot of buttons or something that's gonna take a long time to undo. So you really have to think about your clothes. You can't just throw something on and head out the door. That could be really disastrous later. So you really have to think about it. Everything takes energy when you're sick. So they went through the whole day and they're using up these spoons, and then at the end of their pretend day, they come home and she had one spoon left. And so Christine told her friend, okay, you've got one spoon left. And so with that spoon, what are you gonna do? Are you going to hang out with a friend? Are you gonna make yourself a healthy dinner and do the dishes? Or are you gonna save your spoon for tomorrow? Because who knows what's gonna happen tomorrow? You might need an extra spoon. If you only do one of those things, you don't have the energy to do all three, so you have to choose. And it was a good lesson for her friend in that you can't do everything, right? Healthy people generally have an unlimited supply of spoons, but when you're sick, you don't. And so that's why I brought spoons today, so Ryan's gonna hand those out, and it's just a good reminder. I have a friend who every time I hang out with her, on the way out, she gives me a hug and says, thank you so much for spending a spoon with me today. Thank you for using a spoon on my family. And it's really nice. It's just a good reminder of I recognize that you aren't well. I recognize that you're sick and it's a sacrifice to be here. I recognize that and I appreciate it. It's a really nice reminder. All right, I think I'll close there for today. I am available afterwards if you have questions. I'm very open. I think it's a great way to share knowledge and spread awareness of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. And I'll also be available at the walk this afternoon. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you there. Thank you so much.